Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Underground Kings podcast. Today I am joined by a very special guest who is on for his second time. We convinced him to come back on, Tim Viechec. Tim, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for the invite. Always nice to be back and just share some thoughts.
Lord knows we spend enough time together.
We do, and we certainly share enough thoughts.
That's right. Whether it's midnight conversations about business or when the world is
4
sleeping.
a.m. text. Or a midnight text.
Hey,
Both work.
Yep. Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Okay. So, last we spoke, the gym had not been open that awful long. Next Level Mobility was, I think, in month 3 or 4.
Yep.
And so give me a little bit about like what this year has looked like, what it's been now. How many months now?
We're going into our 11th month, coming up on our year of our soft opening, which was May 11th last year. So that's like we're right up against us. We're starting to think about it. We've been thinking about it for a while, but no, it's been a wild ride. It was certainly, thinking about myself and this crazy idea to retire at 61 and open a fitness studio, it was pretty far out, even for myself. But you sit and look at what's happening, and month over month, we're going into our 11th month. This month's looking like it's going to be our best record month ever, and I've said that about every month so far. And really, the heart of Next Level Mobility is that we're helping people. And that really is what's changing the game for Next Level. And we're hearing it. We're hearing it from our clients. We're hearing it from just all over on how we make this change. So it's been a great run. We continue to, attract new clients every day. We get calls every day. I got another call today, and just constant calls trying to find out what we're all about.
That's a beautiful thing. And so I pulled up the screenshot of so for those that may not know, Blades Marketing works with Next Level Mobility, helps manage the socials. And this comment came through on the Next Level Mobility page for a client spotlight post yesterday. And it reads, "I absolutely love how much you guys work with people. You have such amazing energy and knowledge. Nothing like the big gyms and trainers, which is a good thing. I only wish I had your business in my area. You are truly helping people that usually wouldn't want to go to the big gyms and keep coming so they can get more mobile and functional." What does that mean to you?
The day I read that, the day you sent that to me and I jumped online, I can't even put into words what it meant to me because, as you know, this was always a dream of mine from my own journey. Even though it was a short journey, it was a very impactful journey. That's the funny thing about journeys. They don't have to be long. They can be short. They could be very long. But this one was pretty short. And, you dream about what you want to do. And I think I've told you when we thought about this, it was something that we thought about for a while before we really started executing on it. And so 2021 was the year of creation. We were thinking about it, talking about it, deciding what it would look like, what would the vision be. And I toured the country looking for the best of the best, day in and day out. And I found a lot of ideas and a lot of thoughts. We put it all together. Year 2 was the year of building, which we did. And now we're into the year of accountability. And to get something like that is, you can't pay for that. You can't pay for that kind of advertising.
You certainly can't. And you don't get testaments from customers, people that come into contact with you, unwarranted or non-asked for testimonies like that. Those are the sign to me as a business owner that you're heading in the right direction. Those are what tell you, and sometimes the testimonies that are left are not good things. There's both positive and negative reviews. Now I know for Next Level, you guys don't have any negative reviews because it's how many 5 stars now?
We're up to, we're just hitting on 40 5-star reviews.
So you've yet to get your first negative one. We get it.
It's going to happen. Somebody's going to get upset with us.
Eventually, it comes along.
Yep.
But those are great moments as a business owner to be able to look at the good and the bad and be able to assess not only what, because it's so easy to get caught up in your vision and it's your baby and you built this business. So, it's like a father would look at their own child, it's like, that's my kid. But it's easy to get caught up in that. And then a lot of times, sometimes you need, outside input to let you know that you're building the right thing or that you're doing the right things. And to me, that testimony on Instagram the other night was just a testament to the fact of exactly what it is that you said from day one you wanted to build.
Right. It was very rewarding to me because, we get comments to people that come in, much credit goes to Blades Marketing and how they helped us feature the story and how to get the story out there, because this comment we received was strictly from what she's been seeing on our social media page. And so she has not stepped foot into the location. And when you could express, it's one thing to create that story, and I give great credit to my staff for creating it, because in the end of the day, it really is them. It's all about them, and they've known that from day one. I think we've talked about this. I treat them all like they're business owners, because that's the only way you get people to care enough. And that's one part of it. But to be able to tell the story, for someone to be able to respond like what you just read, it's incredible. I don't even know anybody who would justify that any other way. It's that good. So yeah, it was awfully rewarding and, nice to see.
That's fantastic. Now, at this stage of the business, now that you're really, you've undergone some quite rapid growth in the past few months. What are some newfound challenges that you're finding in scaling your first business at your age? And I know you like to call it retirement. Sure. If retirement means still working the same amount. But what are some newfound challenges for you as a business owner at your age, building your first business, that you're finding within this rapid growth stage?
A lot of people today are talking about hiring and employees and decisions on employees. That seems to be the number one talk about anybody that's trying to build a business today. I've been very fortunate, and I don't know if it's just, my experience, my knowledge, or how I treat my staff, is that each person I put on is better than the next one, better than the one I had. We continue to get more and more and more people. They're increasing. I don't know how to really define it, Colden. It's more about they get stronger. But the other issue is they're getting stronger because they're falling into an environment that's already created. When we were first hiring our team, we wanted to put together the best of the best. And I think I did that. But now we're hiring new people, but they're already joining in the best of the best.
Right. So they're able to learn from the others,
Right.
And also the environment, the systems and processes in place, the service delivery to the clients, the quality benchmarks, they're all there.
Yes.
The roadmap is there for them the moment they walk in the door and join your team.
Yes. Yes. And that roadmap is important, because I think a lot of people start businesses and they're short-sighted. They're either too short-sighted or they're thinking too long range. You have to find somewhere in the middle. Like I said to you before, there's a creation year where you're starting to think about the business. What are you doing? How long are you taking? Sometimes the creation part could last 2 years. Creation is really, really important. Then you have your building year. You build the business, you decide, now you've created this thing, now you build it and say, okay, did I do all the right things? Then there's the accountability year. That's the year we're in right now, accountability in many ways, accountability to our clients first and foremost. Clients are the number one reason we exist today, and I've spread that message from day one. How you treat them, what you do, how you respond to them, and how you go above and beyond. But other than that, the challenges that we've had with the business have only been more building, like structural, getting your permits, things like that, all the just nitty gritty stuff. But as far as the visionary, a little bit of, had to force myself and discipline myself to stay on task. Because in the early days, when we first opened a couple months and, you're doing these little volumes, you're like, did I do this right? But, I'm so happy that Next Level started out this way because we were able to grow it properly. Too many times when you open a business and you get a mad rush, you can't respond to it. And we've slowly been able to respond to this business, and it's proven out not only in our reviews, but in people that are looking at social media. For that, again, for that lady or whoever she was to respond to that, just looking at social media is nothing short of amazing.
It is. It's incredible. That's the power of social media and a lot of, this new age technology in this era of the internet. And now we have AI entering the mix. We have all these crazy technological advances, but the business owners that see the opportunity in it and the fact that it removes locational boundaries. Mm-hmm. It enables you to reach people where you want to reach them, and it can be hyper focused. You can try and target people within a certain area, mm-hmm. or you can branch out. And in your case, with the broader potential vision for Next Level Mobility to look to maybe franchise, mm-hmm. or open other locations, et cetera, the power to be able to establish a brand presence and an identity at a broader scale, right, and be able to then look at engagement from different areas and make a calculated decision upon the engagement and reactions you're getting from people in a place that you're not even there yet, and then look to build that second location. And I know you're just as much of a data scoundrel as I am. We love looking at the numbers, and we seem to, get off on spreadsheets or something. But
definitely. Well, listen, you follow the numbers, but the caution I tell all new business owners is don't get so focused on the numbers. Get focused on the vision. The numbers will come. In the early days, my business partner was very aggressive trying to get a sale, and I had to pull him back, and I said, that is not what this is about. You don't worry about the sale. Worry about getting the client the best experience possible. The sales will come after that. And that worked very well. It worked in my favor because that's how I talk to these people. And whether it's a simple different way of exercising because somebody has wrist problems and we want to cushion how they do a push-up, to something completely different on how they work out. And that's the advantage of Next Level. That's where we set ourselves apart, and we're getting great credit for that today, and I want to continue that path.
Beautiful. So talk to me a little bit more about the relationship you have with your wife. Mm-hmm. And obviously you are by no means a low-strung guy. You are definitely very high energy, high paced, something very unique for someone of your age,
right,
as well. Let alone any age, but sure, at your age especially, you're very high energy. You're working vigorously towards whatever task is at hand. And, it can be difficult for individuals like ourselves to shut off every once in a while.
Yes.
If at all. So what is the relationship transition been like with your wife from going into this retirement phase to, hey, I'm going to pursue this new vision that I have and start a business? Yeah. How did that conversation come about?
Well, the interesting thing, it all had to do with a dream that we both had. We always wanted to move to a warmer climate, and that really was the vision of the dream. We love the ocean. We love being close by the ocean. Even though we were by the ocean, it was cold half the year, so we wanted to get to a warmer climate, and we talked all about that. But, after being married almost 40 years, my wife knew what kind of personality I was. And, COLDEN, in this world today, too many people either look at somebody who's enjoying life and, playing around as a bad thing, or somebody who's working as a bad thing. And who's the judgment person to say which one is right? If you're truly enjoying what you're doing, they say you never work a day in your life. And I'm having the best time right now in my life. Do I work hard? Yeah, there's some days I work hard, but I'm working hard for me. and for a vision. And if you enjoy it, we have to stop beating ourselves up for being the workaholic. We tend to do that. We think it's a bad thing. We all need to relax. We all need to take some downtime to enjoy ourselves. But what's the problem if we're really enjoying ourselves?
You're absolutely right. I mean, no one calls someone like a fitnessaholic or like a healthy eateraholic.
Right.
You know, like, oh, you eat way too healthy, I'm going to shun you. I mean, there's definitely some groups that I'm sure would.
Sure.
But no, and at the end of the day, you know, we're inherently doing what we want to do.
Right.
Like if I'm still working late into the evening, I'm still working because I want to be working. In most cases, there's obviously, you know, of course, starting a business, you know, having, you know, multiple businesses, brands that you're building at the same time. Like for me, there are absolutely times when I'm working when I don't want to be,
Right.
like because I have to be.
Right.
But most of the time, you know, I really am like making the decision to do so. And something like a conversation for me that I've had to have with, you know, with friends, with people outside of work, you know, just personal relationships that I have, even family as well, has been like, I work 7 days a week at the moment. You know, I work Saturdays and Sundays most of the time. And, but for me, I'm going to default on doing that until another opportunity presents itself. And then I'll weigh the two and decide what I want to do. So a lot of times it's challenging because I would reach spans of my life where, and I understand why, I totally understand it, but where, you know, you work so hard for so long, eventually friends, whether they really care about you or not, you know, a lot of them still really care about you, but they just stop asking.
Right.
But then you kind of break through, you get to a point where you're like, okay, like I definitely can go to the beach this Saturday and relax for a couple hours and play some spike ball or do whatever with some friends. But if somebody doesn't reach out and like present that opportunity, a lot of times I'll just say, oh, I'll just work. Like I don't mind it. I'm going to do what I want to do. And like if I'm going to be on my own, I'm just going to work.
Right. Well, it is, you know, it's important to enjoy life. So don't get me wrong. I think that, you know, but who defines what that means? In other words, because you do. And, you know, I had, as you know, I had a very lengthy retail career, 45 years in retail with various brands of, as you know. And I loved my work. I literally loved my work. And I still look at it fondly, but at some point in time when you start, I don't know if you could call it falling out of love with your work sometimes. I think that you get there. People get there in their life. They're like, okay, now it's time to move on. Some people get there quicker than others. You know, I had the option to just sail away and just, you know, golf every day. I wouldn't be happy with that. That would not make me happy. And what's wrong with that?
Nothing. As long as you're doing what fulfills you, like what brings you purpose.
Right.
I don't think it's the world's place to judge what makes one happy or what fulfills one or what is purposeful to another. It's just as simple as that. I think it's all up to the individual.
And if you're forcing yourself to do something else because you think somebody thinks a certain way about you, or that people think you should be doing something else, like, you know, why is he at 60? I'll be 62 this year. We're trying to operate a fitness studio. Why is he doing that? Well, because I want to. At the end of the day, because that's what I want. Does that sound selfish? Yeah, a little bit. But you know what? I think everybody deserves a little bit of selfishness in their life. And when I say that, don't take that as negative. It's okay, because by being selfish to yourself, you create happiness, and you're happier for you. And that happiness extends on to the people you love.
I believe that. So, okay.
And back to your question on marriage, I think my wife knew that from the very beginning. She knows how driven I am, And she knew that that was my happiness. And she knew that me sitting around doing nothing would make me miserable. So
Right.
she's okay with it.
It is. It's so important to find that person in your life when you're talking about, you know, a relationship and someone you might be starting a family with, things along those lines. Like finding someone that is going to support you being yourself, like support you for you, like not support you putting on a facade and doing doing things for the sake of others, as far as like portraying a certain image or, you know, working a certain job or doing whatever it may be. Now, as a man, I think it's your duty to make sure there's food on the table.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
At the end of the day, you know, you have to seek out someone who truly appreciates you for who you are.
And that's the problem in marriages today, because people get together and then they think they could change the other person. And make no mistake, no one can change anybody else. You can inspire change into people. You know, there was a story a long time ago as I was going through management, learning all about management, and a young guy, you know, managing people. And there's this whole talk about, you know, you need to motivate. Can you motivate? Do you motivate people? And I went to a seminar with a great guy, forget his name, but he started talking and he says, you cannot motivate anyone. No one could. I'm like, well, yeah, I can. No, you can't. All you can do is motivation comes from deep within. You can only create an environment for people to motivate themselves. That's true motivation.
And I would even take it a step further as well. I mean, I think motivation will only get you so far, and then discipline comes into play.
Oh.
Where, like, I can't count the number of times where I watched a particular movie, saw a video, read a quote, was hanging around the right person, and they inspired me to take action and do something.
Yeah.
And that motivation carried me through a 48-hour window, and then it started to taper, and I slowly stopped doing the things that I was doing because I was motivated. That's where discipline comes into hand. You know, you have to become disciplined in life so that when the motivation is absent, you still show up and you still do what needs to be done.
Right, because motivation just gets you started. Motivation is the thing that lights the fire, if you will, because we all have the fire, or not everybody does, but you know, some people do, some people don't. But the discipline is the cornerstone. And I talk a lot about sometimes you have to do what you don't want to do in order to do what you want to do. And nobody wants to pay those dues. There is times where you're into a situation, you have to do it because you have to do it. And it's not the best thing right at the moment in time, but it leads you to a better thing at the end. And, you know, in my career, I you know, moved all around the country, and my last move was, prior to this move, was my hardest move. You know, you try to take somebody out of California and tell them to go to New Jersey. That's crazy, you know, and I fought that move forever and ever and ever. But you know what? That move is what got me to where I am today. I look back at it and I say to myself, had I not done that, had I had not followed that, where would I have been today? And, you know, today I'm in the best time of my life. I mean, I'm living in a resort town. I'm, you know, close to the beach where the weather's warm most of the time. I go into the studio whenever I want, or whenever I stay home, whenever it led me there. So, but it was through the discipline that said, you might not want to go to New Jersey, but go to New Jersey. Or the discipline in everything we do. Discipline, I don't know, motivation puts the wheels on, but you can't go anywhere without discipline. Discipline is the engine that gets those wheels moving.
When you were a young man,
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see yourself or envision yourself going down the path that you did?
There was a partial, I always was interested in retail. And I did spend 45 years in retail. And it depends on how young you're talking. I mean, from a child, you know, we all play.
I would say like 18 to 20.
Oh, 18 to
Grown
20.
into a
yeah.
young.
I knew exactly where I wanted to be. I wanted to work retail. There was no ifs and buts. I loved customer service. I loved guest service. I loved selling. I loved talking people into things. You know, it started out, you know, my very first job was a department store. So it was more of a cashier than anything else. It really wasn't selling. But once I graduated high school, I moved into a more selling environment. I used to sell men's and women's suits and sport coats. And that's a high-end, high-ticket item. And boy, what a great experience. I mean, when people are walking out with $2,500 sale at 18 years old, and, you know, you're selling to people that are much older than you. So that always intrigued me. I mean, when I was 16, I tried so hard to get a job in a jeans store because I really wanted to work in a blue jeans store. And I didn't get that job. I was passed over because I didn't have the experience. So that's a case where everybody wants experience, but how do you get experience if nobody wants to give you experience, right?
Right. We might as well lean into the college conversation then. How do you feel about the current education system and the process at which it's bringing students in, and then kind of how it's going about putting, like, once the kids are graduating, putting them into the job force?
Interesting question, but let me just preface it by saying I have a very, very high value on education. I think that is so important, and I think that there are paths that we take, and the need for education is out there. However, what's happened through the years is that became more of, they've lost the vision of education sometimes, in my opinion. You know, that the vision is to educate people, to make you smarter, to move you further on in life. And then it became about money more than anything. And it's to the point where now it's coming full circle, because the latest information is that people are dropping the requirement for degrees, for your degree. And as you know, I do not have a college degree. There's two paths that people take in life. There's path A, I go to school, I study, I'm smart, I go to college, and then I get a job. And then there's the other path. I go to school, I make it through, and I get a job. And, because I really want to go start getting paid. Now, if you take two people going through those paths, one chooses the college, one chooses the not college. So now this person has all the experience. They get out, and 3 years down the line, or they get out, say the guy that's got out of college, the one who didn't go to college, they both apply for the same job. And they're both denied. The one's denied because he doesn't have a college education. The other one's denied because he doesn't have experience. And that is the slippery slope in which we lead today. I mean, I feel sorry for young people because, your best case scenario is graduate, get a job within your field, part-time, that's going to allow you to go to school too, which is one in a couple 100,000 people, right? How do you get that? And so it's hard to get both. And no matter what, even though I put a high value on education, experience far outweighs education any day of the week because it's tangible. It's experience lets you go through it, and you're not just reading about it. You're not just writing an essay about it. You're not just sitting in a classroom and discussing it. You're living it. And that, to me, outweighs anything else. But, there became this big thing that you had to have a college degree. They didn't even care what your college degree was, just that you had one. And surprisingly enough, I wouldn't be surprised if there's lots of people in this world today that just lied about it and said, I do have a college degree.
It's really, if you open your eyes to like the big picture of some of the degrees. Like I truly believe that there are hands down some good universities out there. There are some great college educations out there. There are some great studies. Like for instance, if you want to be a doctor, you need to go the college route. Like you need the formal education.
Absolutely.
If you want to be, well, prior I would have said an accountant, but now they're going to have AI that is going to do all accounting for you. You know, if you want to be a scientist, if you want to be a mathematician, maybe, you know, there's some job fields that you most definitely need that college education.
Right.
But it's maybe 1 to 3% of the degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And like I even look at, you know, so for instance, law enforcement.
Yeah.
So my father was in law enforcement. And at one point in my life, my younger years, you know, I actually thought about going law enforcement and things of that nature, and was looking into like what it entails. And more or less, you know, where I was at in New York, you know, you had to have, I believe it was a bachelor's degree in anything. And you know, you get to asking questions as far as like, okay, so I can just go to college, not even for criminal justice. I can just go for anything. And in what way, shape, or form is that preparing me to be law enforcement?
Right.
And if it doesn't matter, then why does it matter what degree, like that I even get a degree? And the answer really comes down to, and it's scary to think about, but there are bigger figureheads in place that want to see universities make money. They are for-profit organizations. They are.
And that's really what it gets down to. And it gets down to that idea that you have to have this degree in something, just a degree, just okay, he has a degree, but it doesn't matter if it matches with what it is. And that in lies the problem right there. And then the expenses, and you know what college debt is right now. That's the reason why a lot of people are stopping the need for a college degree. Because again, going through college, and listen, what I'll say about college is the one high value I put on going to college is there's a thing in life for everybody that it's maybe a degree in plays well with others.
Yep.
If they had that degree, that's a degree that probably most people need today. Plays well with others. How do you learn to do that? You know, as a kid, depending on your upbringing, how you're brought up, who your parents are, and then you move into your social circle and the people that you've gotten involved in, they help teach you how to play well with others. But that's where I would put the value on college. Because, when you get into the corporate world, as I did, you have a little bit of an adjustment to make because you haven't been on debate clubs. So now you're in a corporate boardroom and you're trying to get your point across. You're trying to validate your idea, and you might not have that experience. That's where I saw that it would be important. So yeah, I think that, to your point, you do need college. Don't make a mistake. College needs to happen for select professions, not all.
I absolutely agree. Controversial opinion of mine. You know why I believe so many of these large corporations are still holding on to the degree requirement for job roles? Because if you have someone coming into a job for your company with a college degree, odds are there is college debt attached to that. And if that individual has outstanding college debt,
Yep.
they are more likely to remain in that job position because they need the money and they are going to become attached to that paycheck because it's their lifeline.
Right.
When they have to make monthly student loan payments and they have that debt outstanding, are they going to take the leap of faith to try and pursue a job at another company? Probably not. So you get you get less turnover in employees when you're hiring students with degrees, because those degrees, odds are that individual has outstanding student loans.
And many of them. And that's what's happening today, or has happened, because I do even know some people that continued to try to get more degrees so that they could defer their payments. And all they did was create a bigger problem for themselves. And I know some people that have over $200,000 of come out of college with a $200,000 college debt. How could you really enter life?
You can't. You start behind the 8 ball and you'll remain behind.
Never. You live your whole life in a sea of debt.
Because that's assuming, that they're supposed to just not live their life or meet the right person, start the family, get the house, have a car.
Yeah.
Like that's $200,000 in student loan debt.
Yeah.
They're going to be paying that off for most
Forever.
people, probably 30, 40 years.
For their life. And that is really the problem, because the system is broken. The system says, okay, as long as you're going to college, you don't have to pay your student debt. And so they keep going to college, but that debt keeps on increasing. That is probably one of the most uneducated things to do.
I was just thinking about the point I just made about, companies are still holding on to the degree requirement for people coming out of college because of the fact that diploma or that, degree comes with student loan attached, and then there's less turnover and they keep them on. And how would the government benefit from that? The government benefits from that because as long as they're making
unemployment,
if they're making an income, they're charging tax dollars on that income.
Yes. So keep people in debt, so that they come out of college, fresh out of college, with a whole world of opportunity in front of them. But oh, by the way, you've got this little $200,000 in debt hanging out, and now you want to get married, you want to buy a house. So what do? You take on more debt, and then you become just over. You look at people today and you say, wow, they've got a lot of nice things. Do they have a lot of nice things, or do they have a lot of nice debt?
The reality is the bank has a lot of nice things in most cases.
Yes.
I was just having a conversation today with someone about, he was an avid believer in, he liked to lease cars. He liked the idea of, I can always, if I want a newer model or a different model or this, that, the other thing, I prefer leasing.
Right.
And he says the number one argument his friends make is why wouldn't you just finance it, leasing it, you never own it? It's you guys realize what financing means? It means the bank owns your car.
Yes.
You don't own that car until you've made the final payment.
Right.
People just don't, the younger generation are suffering because they haven't done their due diligence to understand what money is and how it moves.
Yeah.
Haven't taken the time to actually understand and pay attention to, the political landscape, the government, local governments, understanding how all of these systems play into one another, and money is at the base of all of it.
Always.
And when you actually start understanding how some of these things move and why they move, then you can adjust accordingly and you can make smarter decisions. But also, the other thing is, shame on these large organizations that are working behind the scenes to make sure people fall into these traps. Yeah. Because, as much as I'm able to say this now, when I was 18 years old coming out of high school, someone could have said exactly what I'm saying right now to me, and I wouldn't have even understood what they were getting at. So we're indoctrinating kids at such a young age, and it's so unfair. And what needs to start happening is for us to just start having serious conversations with our youth about, what do you want to do? I want to be a doctor. Okay, college is great for you. I want to work with animals and like work at a shelter. Like, okay, do this, do that. And then there's, I would debate a majority of them that are going to say, I don't know. I'm 18 years old. I don't know what I want to do. And you know what? I might know what I want to do today, but what I want to do tomorrow will be completely different. Okay. And so we're going to have them sign the dotted line and go tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt when they could change their mind.
Yeah, take some general courses so you can get your whatever they call it. I know that you have to take some general courses to get all your credits to lead you to graduation.
It's a scam.
And so you're going in and you're like, oh, you're undecided, right? You go in undecided.
They love that, don't they?
They love that, yeah, because that's more money.
Stay undecided.
Stay undecided. Like I said, I do agree. This is not to discount education at all. I firmly believe in education. We could probably get into a whole deep conversation about grade school and high school and junior high and all the things they have to worry about. But, you talk about understanding. They don't teach real life in school. They even don't teach math properly and accounting and things like that people, how many people are coming out of high school or even out of college and they don't know how to manage their finances. They're a financial mess because nobody's ever taught them. If their parents didn't sit down to teach them, or if they hadn't found a mentor to help them, who's going to help them? That's not an easy path to find out. And unless you're driven, like what we said, you're really driven to find the answers, you're going to struggle.
You're absolutely right. And you can't find the answers to questions that you don't even know to ask.
Right.
You say like coming out of high school, like they come out with no financial sense or financial knowledge or education. There's none of that in the younger school systems. I think there are in some now, but not much and not at scale. I came out of high school, I didn't know how to fill out a check. Like we're talking simple, stupid things.
Right.
But, who benefits from keeping them naive? Well, the same government that has jurisdiction over what and how the schools are supposed to teach and is implementing statewide mandated education. Like we have, I know for a fact that we had I took multiple state mandated English exams. Right. Did I take one singular state mandated financial exam? Not one. Not one. And these aren't ignorant people. These are grown-ass adults that are paid a full-time income to make decisions on behalf of the people.
Well, you have the need to, it becomes more of a numbers game than anything else. Like, okay, you could teach people how to take tests, not learn the knowledge. Mm-hmm. Like, some people are great test takers. There's people who get paid to take tests and could do very well. But that doesn't mean they've retained anything or that they had the knowledge. And that's the hardest part of this. That is, unfortunately, the school system, is in a word, broken. It's a lot harder today. But even back when I was going to school, they still missed out on some very important life lessons that you need to know to be able to go into life. I talk about play well with others, but there's this whole financial piece of people get out of school and then how do you get an apartment? Like, how does that all happen? Where is that teaching?
There isn't any.
Yeah. The only time they do, depending on who you are and what your religion is, Catholics have this pre-Cana thing that they go through. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
No.
It's called pre-Cana, and if you're looking to get married, they put you through this to find out that you're compatible with each other. And there's classes for people, couples go. And one of the things they do cover with that is finances and how to handle your finances, which is
how to handle them as a couple?
As a couple, yeah.
Okay.
They talk a little bit about the basics of financing. And that was the only taste of financial education that I got in my life, was we went through pre-Cana, which is a pre-marriage requirement of the Catholic Church. And so, that was the only thing. And other than that, I learned it on my own. Now, one could say we do learn from our mistakes. We do. Mm-hmm. But how do we do less of the mistakes and still learn? That's the challenge.
Right. And also, I feel like mistakes in everyday life, like you talked about the importance of experience when entering a job field. Yeah. And, a lot of the mistakes that you're going to make while gaining that experience is where a lot of your fundamental knowledge is going to come from. It's like, okay, I messed up here. Here's how to do it properly.
Right.
Or like, in any line of work, you're going to make mistakes and that's how you're going to learn. But when we start talking about financial mistakes that are made at a young age, not knowing necessarily what you're signing up for, when we're talking a mistake that cannot be escaped, like student loans, you can't default on. No. We're talking about a potential 10, 20, 30, 40-year repercussion mistake.
Yep.
That's, you're talking about someone's life now.
You are.
And
hard to recover.
And then the same people are going to come out and preach, like the same older generation that talks about how messed up the youth is and how they're not starting families and like there's just no traditional values anymore. Those same people are like, they created this system and drove their kids to the only route if they wanted to be successful. And then they're upset that their kids they're not able to necessarily prioritize getting a house, starting a family, living a stable life, providing for that family, putting food on the table, because they're up to their ears in debt.
But that creates the vicious cycle, because there are some people who have that student debt, they come out with big debt, they get married, and then they just continue to take on more debt, and they start a family. And then this thing comes crashing in, and then guess what? They have to get a better job because they need more money. And then they get a better job because they need more money, but then they take on more debt because they got a better job because they're making more money. And it's a vicious cycle. And then, they want to buy all the best of the best for their kids. And while everybody wants the best for their kids, does everybody need to wear brand names all the time? And how condescending do you get when you're looking at just brand names if you're walking around with all brand names? And the people don't understand that. They like I said, I always said when my wife and I, they look like they're doing really good. And are they doing really good or do they have a lot of debt? You can look the same way. If you have a lot of money or a lot of debt, sometimes you can't tell the difference.
That's very true. It's interesting, today, it's crazy, especially when social media entered the space. There are so many people, and I can tell you from firsthand experience working in the digital marketing, social media marketing space. If I wanted to portray that I was this 7-figure-a-year entrepreneur, business consultant, coach,
you can do that,
and that I can teach you how to do it too.
Yep.
I can tell you right now, it wouldn't be that awful hard.
Yeah.
I'd hire a photographer, videographer to showcase my life.
Yep.
And I'd probably finance a $15,000 Rolex. Mm-hmm. I'd get a nice $1,200 suit. Mm-hmm. And I'd go get a rental car, something nice. I'd rent it for a couple of days for $400 or $500, and then I'd book a beachfront Airbnb with a pool and a hot tub, and I'd invite some people over from Instagram and say I'm throwing this party.
Yep.
And I'd have the entire thing documented, and within 1 week, I'd have enough content to roll out over the course of the next couple of months
to make you look like you're a very wealthy person.
And it would not be hard to do.
Well, that's the truth about people today. I mean, something's not always real.
I absolutely agree. So moving into our final ending segment here. What would be a word of advice that you would have for any young individual, such as myself or younger, that is currently starting their first business? What are some pitfalls that they should avoid, or some advice that you would give to them?
Mm. Well, the first thing is, when you're creating a business, whatever that business is, if you're looking to create your own business, the first advice I would give a young person is absolutely do it. That's the first thing I would tell you, because I did it at 60. I would have loved to see what I could have done if I would have had this when I was like 18. Like, wow, what could it have been? But you have to stay on vision. You have to, and this is what experience teaches you. And this is that slippery slope of education versus, hands-on working and experience. I mean, what do you do first? What came first, the chicken or the egg, is the question. And so my advice, number one, is, first of all, when you're thinking about your business, really wear test it. Get a lot of advice from people. Just take it for what it's worth, but listen to what people are saying, because you can even listen to the naysayers. There were people even at my age that said, who's going to pay you for that? Right?
Yep.
Well, we've proven that apparently there are people out there that will pay us for that, or somebody else says, you're going to work so hard, you're not going to have time to breathe. Well, I don't know. I was on the beach the other day enjoying my life. Those things will happen, but you have to stay on vision and on task. First, if you're creating a business, what is the business that you're trying to create, and what's it going to do, and how are you going to get people to know about your business? So you have to stay on task. And that requires, to your point, discipline. You have to have a strong discipline about what you're doing. So creating the business and then the discipline to execute the business. That's where the real secret comes in. Anybody could be a visionary, and the one caution I have for people is don't bite off more than you can chew. Everybody wants to grab onto everything. Stay focused on your piece. Have I ever talked to you about the circle of influence and the circle of concern?
No.
All right. This is a way that I view life in general, and I learned this at a very early age. There's two circles. There's a small circle, and that's your circle of influence. This is everything that you can do. You can get up, you can make your bed, you can drive the car, you can empty the trash. You have complete control of everything you're doing, right? And then there's this outer circle, right? That is everything that happens to you, everything that's happening around you that you don't have control of, right? And a lot of people spend time in that outer circle. The reason is they did this to me. I can't do this because this person did this to me, or this is preventing me from getting to where I want to go. So there's all these concerns, or, oh my God, the banks are failing right now. So now okay, the banks, are they? We don't know. Yeah, there's been some noise about bank failings right now. But I was always taught to stay within your circle of influence, because you can influence that. And as your influence grows, those concerns go away. And you really want to spend that time on what you can influence. So as young people, don't get all concerned about, well, I don't have a place to build my business. I don't have this. You're going to think about all the can'ts. Because, I live by that saying, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. So stay on task, number one. Have a proper vision. Business has failed because people just willy-nilly think they're going to do this idea, and they don't think it all through. And then wear test it against people. Find out other businesses that maybe are doing the same thing you're doing. I spent extensive research for a year and a half going into every possible gym I could go into in any part of the country that I could go into. I drove my business partner nuts texting him, well, what about this? What about that? Look at this. What are they doing here? And one thing I found out is there's a need for fitness and wellness and people improving their quality of life. And that's why what I love about Next Level, I love the name Next Level, but I love the move, play, live part of Next Level, because I think really that's the story. We want you to move. Let me ask you this. How many people that you have that are homebound or, in a wheelchair or can't get out of the chair? If they're not moving, then how could they play? And if they're not playing, they're not living. And that's the way I think about Next Level. I think Next Level to me is more about the move, play, live than anything else. So stay focused on your mission. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Have a strong discipline about what you're doing. Discipline yourself. And, I often say self-discipline is the hardest discipline to get. It really is. Self-discipline is tough, and some people just don't have discipline. It's easier to just go home and play video games, or, I don't want to do this. It's too hard, or it's not fun. Well, sometimes it's not fun. If it was fun, it would be called fun, not work. They're two different things. And some people enjoy having fun, and they'll live a good life. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't knock anybody who wants to golf every day or go out to the beach every day. And if they have the resources to do that, that's perfectly fine. So I applaud them. But then should anybody not applaud what I'm doing or what you're doing? Because we're so focused on what we love, and that is work. We love keeping, and it's not work that we're in love with. It's keeping our minds working. It's keeping our minds, you and I spoke a few weeks ago, or not that long ago, a week ago, is that my biggest fear is the fear of doing nothing. That I get to one day that I have nothing to do. I just don't know that to me would be worse than death, because I have to constantly be doing something. I mean, I know you've only known me about a year, but you can, you know what kind of movements I do. I'm into just about everything. So yeah, vision, focus, discipline. They're the three things that I could tell you. Have a proper vision. Make sure your vision's right, though, because sometimes people don't think everything through. This idea gets very exciting for them, and they want to run after it, but they said, well, what about? I spent a lot of time when we were creating Next Level asking people to tell me why it wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. And today, as you know, as I encourage you and anybody else, tell me what's wrong with the business. Because while that lady gave us a great comment, right? It's a wonderful thing, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. And I applaud my staff, and I pat myself on the back, and I want to jump up and down. But that's all I could do with that. But when someone tells me, you don't have a leg machine that works well for me, or you should add a sauna, or if you had a sauna, it would be better. Those are the things I look for. If you had an ice bath, I want people to tell me what's wrong with the business. And I encourage them to do it. We have a suggestion box up front, and we ask all our clients to tell us what they would like to see at Next Level. And so that's the other part of building a business. Don't be so pompous that you think you know how to do it. Even at my age, you can't be. You have to have some ideas, but don't get too pompous that you think you know it all, because you don't.
Absolutely right. Very well said. So now, I suppose, with you as a guest, I can open up this idea for a bit of a segment here. So you and I we formed a relationship due to business. Right. You became a client of mine. We then became friends. I certainly look to you as a mentor. And so a lot of times I'll come to you with a business question or something I'm trying to navigate, or a thought, or whatever it may be, ideas. So what is your perspective or your perception of myself and where I'm at in my journey and what I'm doing. And what do you think so first and foremost, what is your perception on where I'm at now, what I'm doing? But then on top of that, what is it you think that I could do better?
Okay. Well, I think, yes, I do agree. I think our friendship and I think our connection is how we look at life. I mean, I know there's a few years difference between us. Like I'm 3 times your age, but almost. And
well, I'm mentally your age and you're mentally mine.
That's right. That's right. I think we're stuck in each other's bodies here. But no, what I would say about you is that, you know, you're very bright. You're very bright. You're very astute in how you look at things and people and stuff like that. That's what I put the high value on. You know, I have a very small circle of friends, but they're quality people. I don't just associate with anybody. And I'm very selective of the people who I want in my circle. And I have eliminated some people from my circle because it's just a better place for me to be. It's okay to do that. So for you, number one is I think that you have a lot of great ideas. That's the good side. The challenging side and the thing you have to watch is you also have a lot of good ideas. And so don't let your ideas get in the way of your vision. You know, you stay on task pretty well, which I admire about someone your age, because getting someone your age to stay on task is very difficult. But you stay on task very well. But you do get enamored by shiny things. But I don't want you shouldn't lose that, because I think I know in the next 15 years, I'm going to be reading big stuff about COLDEN blades and blades marketing or wherever you go to do. I know it. I'll be sitting at 75 or 80 on a rocking chair somewhere, and I'll be reading about you because I think you're going to make that kind of impact in this world. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's going to catapult your success more than anything, is regardless of what you decide to do, you want to help people. Similarly to how I want to help people, you want to see people grow. You want to see people, and that's going to pay you back in spades. So I think you're on a great path with only one word of caution. Don't bite off more than you can chew. That will get hard to swallow, and that will trip you up. But you have a lot of great ideas. You have a lot of great vision. You've got a lot of great discipline. So all that comes into play. Just don't get too far ahead of yourself.
Okay. Very good advice. Mm-hmm. I certainly do. And I mean, I know it as much as you know it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm immensely ambitious. My ambition doesn't have a ceiling.
No.
And as you also know, you know, if it means going, I guess, you know, we might as well at this point, if you want to tell the story, you can tell the story about my discovery. Go ahead, let it all out.
That was, you know, what was interesting about that is but I'll tell you what, let me tell a different story first of all.
Okay.
How you found that and when you found that was unbelievable. You found that in very, very early stages, and that's why I feel like I'm going to be reading about you in 15 years, because you're going to stumble on something else, because you're like I don't know how to describe what you do, but I don't know how you found that. But now that every day there's something on it about it, so I don't know how you did it. I just remember the call. But my experience with you was when you found that and how you thought it was going to change your life and do a million things for you, which it will. It will. But remember, you were packing up in a car going to spend a night down in Savannah or Charleston or somewhere. You were ready to do, you know, you were bringing on business partnerships and you were like out there, you know, and that's the danger. You know, it's a wonderful thing, but you got to manage that. And I became the naysayer in your life for the first time.
Yep.
And I asked I didn't tell you what not to do. I just asked a lot of questions.
Yep.
And so that's how I'd like to mentor people. I don't like to, like, the worst thing you could do to somebody is pour water on the fire, because the fire is important. Not everybody has that fire. It's hard to, that's what I really appreciate about you, is that you have this fire that's just always going on. So as your friend, as your mentor, whatever you want to call me, how do I manage that fire with you? I ask you questions. And I let you come up with the answers. Because guess what? You already know them. You just don't know that you know them. Yep. You knew everything that I asked you there. You were excited, but when I started asking you, well, how are you going to bring them into your business? And is it going to be Blades Marketing, or is it going to be something else? And, you know, where are we going with it? But the thing is you were, the best way to describe it is, you know, we talk about, if we want to talk about analogies, because I love analogies, analogy is, motivation is the vehicle. Drive are the tires that are going to get you to where you need to go. But as you're thinking about anything in life, you have to be careful, because you should only drive at a certain pace. Because if you drive too fast, what happens?
Wheels fall off.
And so you were going a little bit too fast around those curves. And there were a lot of curves in this idea that you were thinking about. And listen, it was a great idea. You could see that it's happening. People are talking about doing that. And I'm sure that's what's happening right now. But you didn't, you were talking about the end before you really talked about the beginning. Mm-hmm. You were, the only danger in your thought process that time, if I can be as frank as I can, Boris, you were already, you know, you had numbers and dollars already, which is important, don't get me wrong, but you hadn't thought out all the pieces.
Absolutely. Not to well, I was also potentially nutrient and sleep deprived at the time.
That is true. That is true. And you were influenced by others, so there were other influences around you as well. And well, that's the important part of your circle, because you do need, and this isn't a pompous thing, because I need them too. You needed Tim Viechec in your life as a naysayer to say, "What are you doing?"
Right.
I need it in my life, because I'll go running fast with scissors too. Because I'm like, you know, well, what are you thinking? Oh, maybe you should pull that back. Yep. I've had those experiences too.
No, you're absolutely right. That was a funny day. I've never before in my life, I just came across it. I remember calling you the second I discovered it, because I knew if I continued, I knew the second I pressed enter and was like playing with this thing, I called you, because I knew if I didn't call you then, I wouldn't contact anyone. And before I know it, you show up, walk in the door with food, and I'm like, oh, hey, what's going on? You're like, you know what time it is? No, it was like, I don't even know. It was like 3-4 o'clock. Yeah. I had completely lost like 6 hours of time. Not a clue I had done so. Had skipped all the meals of the day, but just was like, I don't know. I was just absorbed by it. And then I didn't get much sleep that weekend.
But Colden, that's a great quality. And that's why when I say to you, I'm going to be reading about you in, you know, whatever years, is because that is, don't knock yourself for that. Don't think that that's a bad thing. Yes, but always look for somebody in your life who's going to pull you back by the collar a little bit and say, whoa, right. whoa, just think about it, because I don't want you to run into that. You're going to get in a collision. Right. And you had thought about some of it, don't get me wrong. It wasn't like just a willy-nilly plan. You had some good parts and pieces, but you didn't have all the pieces together to be able to execute a plan.
Right. You were not once at any point in time, though, did you attempt to deter me from going in that direction. You simply were trying to corral me to straighten out my line.
Right.
Because I was tripping. I was about ready to be just like, I was not eating, not getting sleep, and then like was like full bore ready to like you said, like spend nights in my car in Charleston, like to do this
Knock on
thing.
people's doors,
Yeah.
asking them if they want blog
Go-
service.
just to go. I was going mad, and but you know that's me. That's my nature too. But at the same time, it's like you need that person. That's why going back to the social circle, it's so important to surround yourself with people who know who you are, one, know how you operate, and they want what's best for you.
Yeah.
Because you knew a lot. Like I would have immediately gone completely tone deaf to anything you had to say to me had the first words out of your mouth been, you can't.
Right. I knew that. And I knew that from the very beginning. You know, don't forget I have 3 kids too.
Yep.
And so I've learned that when you say no, like the word no or don't, should never start that way. It's how you ask the question. Because did you think about this? Like, what do you coming into it just naive and saying, well, what are you going to do? I remember the first question I asked you because you wanted to partner with somebody. And I'm like, have you thought about how what that's going to mean to your business? And that I saw the blank stare go into your face like, oh, I have to do that too? And like, well, you don't have to, but what's the result of not doing it? And so I think that's the best way to manage people. Let them answer. Because the truth of the matter is most people know the answers. They just need someone to tell them. You had the answers. It wasn't me that gave you the answers. It was you. I just told you that you could. I opened the door for you. I gave you some things to think about. And you thought about them well, and you pulled it together, and you made good sense out of it. I think, honestly, you have a great potential business here. Meaning, I think you've started a lot of good things. You're slowly working your way to all of these different clients that you're starting to get great relationships for. And I think Blades Marketing is going to be a force to be reckoned with one of these days. Even though you're sitting here in Myrtle Beach, it could be bigger.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Do you have any final words of life advice for the younger generation? Looking back on life, thinking about the things that you wish that you had not done differently,
Right.
but wish that you had done better, or wish that you had avoided,
Or would have done, or
would have done.
You know, that's always a hard question for me. I do a lot of self-reflection, and I think a lot about what I did and the paths and the directions that I've taken. But it's really, it's hard because I think to myself, I've reached a point in my life, everybody has a happiness factor. Happiness is real interesting. I know we talked about that. That's really hard to get because it's evasive. Eternal happiness is very tough to get because bad things are going to happen. You're going to get sad moments. People are going to die that you love, or something's going to happen in your life that's going to make you sad. So eternal happiness is difficult to have all the time. But through your life, everybody has this, I call it a happiness meter. It goes up and down. Well, I just spent 3 years not so happy. Mine's way up right now in a very good way. I'm living where I want to live. I'm married to a great partner that makes my life so good and, never just allows me to be me, which is a wonderful thing. My children are all contributing members of society and they're all doing very well and they have life. I mean, and so it's hard when I look back. Well, what would you have done differently? Because if all my decisions brought me there, how do I look back and say, I think there's one little thing that maybe I would have done differently. And that is I would have got more involved in real estate at an earlier age. That's one thing I would have done differently. Because I had an uncle who said, the real estate will always pay you back. It'll have dips and flaws, but it'll always pay you back. And it's the truth, because I did get some, benefits from that, but I would have invested a lot earlier and I would have done a lot more. So that is one thing I would have done. And I would have I often said I wish I had a 60-year-old me to talk to a 25-year-old me, because I think I could have given that 25-year-old guy a lot of advice, and the number one thing I would think is proceed with caution in everything you do. And I don't mean don't do it. I just mean don't be frivolous about how you're thinking about what you're doing. Really we get in trouble because we're too quick. We make some rash decisions. Never make a rash decision. Never make emotional decisions. Emotional decisions are tough and they're hard to recover from. So stay the course. I would say real estate is probably the one thing that I would have done differently. If you ask me, would I have gone to college? And the answer is going to be a clear, absolutely not. I would have not. While I support it, I don't want that to come across as I don't support it, because I think it has a value. It just didn't for me. And am I sorry that I didn't go to college? Absolutely not. There were moments I was through my life. But then you get to this part of your life and you're like, wow, I don't have any student debt. It's a wonderful thing. I never had student debt. And what was really, I know that when my kids were, because all my kids went to college, and my oldest daughter got her master's degree, and, my youngest daughter got a bachelor's degree. My son dropped out after 2 years, so he didn't get his degree. But like I told you, the one thing that I'm most proud of is that I paid for 2 college tuitions and never spent a day in college. Completely paid off and clear. And so that, I don't know how many people could say that in this world. I've got two tuitions fully paid, but I don't have a degree. So you proceed with caution, and I think life comes down to this thing, that the advice that I give you is, I'm going to go back to what we first talked about, is play well with others. Do play well with others. It will pay you back in spades. And because I think we've run into some people that we both know that might not be playing well with others. And you can see what happens to those people. It eventually falls apart. So play well with others. That's advice that I would give. And proceed with caution in what you do. Carefully. And don't be afraid to make a mistake. It's okay to make a mistake. It's what you do about that mistake that matters. You can recover from a lot. And I've made plenty of them, as we all have, right? Mm-hmm. But how do you recover from that mistake? But yeah, because would I have done anything? Real estate's the only thing that stands out. It's really funny because everything else, pretty, wow. I guess that's pretty good.
Well, that's a beautiful thing then. Tim, thank you very much for coming on again.
Thank you. Appreciate the conversation.
I appreciate your friendship, your mentorship, and for you coming on the podcast, and I'm sure you'll be on again.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Thank you.